What is up, y'all? Welcome to Second and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast for episode 46. Tis the season. This is your host, Michael Roscoe. And on this week's episode, we got a lot to talk about between the offense, the defense, some breakout candidates, and an interesting piece coming from the Kansas City Chiefs. But before we dive into all of that, if you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, as well as hit that bell button for notifications so that you don't miss any content from your favorite podcast, Second and 15. All right, let's dive into our first topic this week with a piece of NFL news. I'm going to talk about just one piece of NFL news because it's the off season. We don't have a whole lot going on. Doesn't mean there's nothing going on, but this particular piece was interesting to me because, of course, it involves a team that just can't seem to stay out of the news. But I'm going to go into that right now, starting with that NFL news. So, a Chiefs Christmas movie? Yeah, you're reading that caption right. The Kansas City Chiefs teamed up with the Hallmark Channel to make a Christmas movie for the upcoming holiday season. Yeah, that's right. Um, this is coming from NFL.com, so it's not some random like clickbait, WIP rumor style type of shit. The movie is called Holiday Touchdown, a Chiefs love story, which is set to air this December during the Hallmark Channel's Countdown to Christmas series, where this movie and the other 637 movies about a big time lawyer who goes back to her hometown and falls in love with the local Christmas tree farmer who teaches her the true meaning of Christmas will air all at the same time. Um, now, the Chiefs just can't seem to stay out of the news. But this piece makes me laugh a little bit, not necessarily out of a bad way, but more so because of this particular quote that came from the article, which states, with Hallmark and the Kansas City Chiefs both homegrown, rooted in values, traditions, and community, there is a special alchemy between these two iconic organizations. Yeah, the last time we saw a Chiefs player talk about traditions, it didn't go well for them. There's no confirmation if this movie is going to be based off of the love story of pop icon Taylor Swift and Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce, but I'm just wondering what iconic characters we will see from this movie. Will it be the one that loves street racing and punching photographers in the face? Will it be the one who believes women are nothing but homemakers and should stay in the kitchen? Will it be the two that were busted with marijuana charges over state lines? That happened a month ago. Look it up. Or will it be the one who just got released from the team for burglary and domestic violence charges? I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see until this movie comes out this December. I'm going to tune into it just to see what happens. All right. Before we go into the real reason y'all are here, which is that Eagles news and discussion, let me give you a quick word from our sponsors, starting with Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. The summer solstice has come and gone, and it is going to be a hot one. It was like 102 degrees where I'm at today. Unnecessarily hot for no reason at all. So you won't want to forget to not only hydrate yourself with plenty of liquids, but to make sure you get your high protein snacks for energy and satisfying your hunger. And for that, you should go ahead and get some Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. Don't forget to pick up, or better yet, go online and head over to righteousfelon.com and use our promo code or OCSN, that's all lowercase, for 15% off of your order, and any orders over $50 will receive free shipping. They got tons of awesome flavors from Teriyaki Balboa, Maryland Monroe, Truffalo Bill, and plenty more. Go get yourself some Righteous Felon craft jerky today. Additionally, with the summer solstice, we have July coming up soon, and that means a lot of concerts, a lot of events, fireworks, you name it. Whatever event you decide to go to, you'll want to make sure that you grab your tickets quickly. And for that, there is SeatGeek. So either head on over to SeatGeek.com or use your mobile app to use promo code Old City Sports Network, all one word and with an E at the end of old, for $20 off of your purchase. And if you can't make your event last minute, SeatGeek will credit your purchase towards the next event if you can't make yours. And finally, if you are someone who wants to look their fresh this year with their beard, then head on over to warlordbeardoil.com, which is a veteran-owned company, and use promo code OLDSPORTS, old with an E at the end and all capitals, one word, for 15% off your beard oils, washes, soaps, anything you need to make your beard looking fresh, groomed, and clean this summer. All orders over $75 will also receive free shipping. And what would I be if I didn't mention the network that has been able to bring you Second and 15, these ads, and along with other awesome shows such as Check the Net, Quit Chasing, Flyers Alley, The Living Room Show, and more. So don't forget to head on to oldcitysports.com, where you can buy a whole bunch of swag, whether that be glassware, clothing, fanny packs, camping wear, you name it. We got it all on oldcitysports.com, and use the promo code OLDCITY for 15% off your purchase. Any purchase that you make will sincerely help not only my podcast, but the other OCSN shows, as well as the network as a whole. So go on to oldcitysports.com today and purchase some gear from your favorite Eagles show. All right, now we're going to dive into our main topic points tonight, talking about the Philadelphia Eagles from the offensive and defense perspective regarding some possible breakout players. All right, our first little bit of Eagles news is a brief one. The ESPY's Sports Humanitarian of the Year Award. Your Philadelphia Eagles are one of 4 finalists for uh, the ESPY's Sports Humanitarian of the Year Award. Other finalists include from the NBA, the Miami Heat, from the National Women's Soccer League, the Angel City Football Club, and another NFL team, the Indianapolis Colts, are all finalists along with your Eagles. The Eagles Philanthropic Organization, the Eagles Autism Foundation, has raised over $30 million since its inaugural event of the Eagles Autism Challenge back, I want to say, in either 2017 or 2018, which is a huge fundraising event at the Lincoln Financial Field, as well as the South Philly Sports Complex area, where they raise money for autism research, advocacy, community participation, job placement, you name it. Tons and tons of great stuff for the autism and Philadelphia communities. And it just so happens to be the place where I got engaged this year to my wonderful fiance. It's a wonderful organization that does so much for those with autism, their families, and the community as a whole, and is so deserving of this award. The winner will be announced July 11th during the ESPY's 2024 awards on ABC. All 4 of these nominees obviously have done so much for their community and are just equally deserving of this award. But of course, your boy's got to be biased towards your Philadelphia Eagles, and hopefully they will achieve this award. But realistically, they are all winners for the community. All right. What is the last offseason move for the Birds, or a last offseason move? Because, Howie could make more than one. We don't know. Um, but ESPN Plus released their article, Final 32 Moves Before the NFL Season, basically one move per team, if you do the math. But we're not going to talk about those 31 other teams. We're going to talk about your Philadelphia Eagles. And the move that they suggest for the Birds is something I've been talking about all, the past few episodes. Something that Eagles fans have probably been wanting for a while now. We've seen an issue in this position last year due to injuries. And that move that was suggested for the Eagles was adding more depth to the safety position with a free agent signing. Now, I know what you're thinking. They probably suggest go ahead and sign Justin Simmons, which would be amazing and I think is the move to make. However, the person that they suggested was none other than Eddie Jackson of the Chicago Bears. Jackson played in 12 games last year, accumulating 37 total tackles, 29 of them being solo, with 5 pass deflections and 1 interception. Now, if we're looking for an upgrade at the position, you may think that those are not the numbers that you want to hear. And you're probably right when you have somebody like Justin Simmons still available in free agency to go and sign. Um, Now, I want to see Justin Simmons go ahead and get signed. But from a bigger picture, I still think we need to make a signing regardless at the safety position. Now, with Eddie Jackson, he has not played a full season since being drafted in the 2017 draft. I think the most amount of games a season he has played was like 16 or 15, something like that. What he does bring to the team, if he were to get signed, is a familiarity with new defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. Obviously, with being in Chicago, he's got familiarity with Fangio. So having a veteran guy like that who's already familiar with Fangio's scheme to help out the current Eagles players who are still learning it is just another opportunity to pick up these new schemes even quicker. And also, it's probably a more financially beneficial signing compared to Justin Simmons. I think he's going to want to get like $15 million, something like that. While Eddie Jackson, we could probably get for a significantly lower price off of like a 1-year contract. Regardless, it's going to add depth to a position that was just absolutely obliterated by injuries. We saw injuries to Sidney Brown, Justin Evans, Reed Blankenship. It was bad. And we signed Justin Evans in free agency thinking he would add help to this area because we were injured at safety 2 years ago too, with both Gardner Johnson and Reed Blankenship suffering injuries during the 2022 campaign. But with Justin Evans, injury didn't work out. He is now, I want to say, still on the market. I don't know if a team has picked him up or not. Regardless, whoever it is, whether it be Justin Simmons, Eddie Jackson, or a different veteran free agent signing, adding one more safety to the roster needs to be the move. Making a move at the safety position would take the pressure off of guys like CJ Gardner Johnson, Avonte Maddox, and rookie Cooper DeJean, because all of those players have either been discussed about playing multiple positions or have already been taking snaps at multiple positions. For example, we've seen Cooper DeJean take snaps in the slot at outside corner, Avonte Maddox taking snaps at safety and the slot corner. CJ Gardner talked about being played safety in the slot. We've seen James Bradbury starting to play safety. But you know what we saw with Bradbury last year? I've said this before. I would rather have a player excel at one position than be average or mid at 2 or more. I think being able to focus on one position takes pressure off these players. One, it takes off psychological pressure from having to not only learn a new defensive scheme, but learn that at 2 different positions. If we have another safety who can be added onto that, it takes the load off of other players who might need to play safety because we don't have as much safeties as other teams. So it relieves them of that like emotional, psychological pressure. And 2, it relieves them of the physical pressure that comes with it of having to be a playmaker, like what we saw with Reed Blankenship. He was kind of like, he acted like a hybrid safety linebacker combination kind of thing, running way out of his zone to make a tackle because tackling was such a huge issue for our guys last season. And that resulted in an injury, that is part of the problem that we saw and are seeing over the past couple of years with not having enough safeties. Um, I would rather have a signing, and then if there's an injury, we have another person there. I'd rather have more people there that we can get than to not have people and have to pull from other positions. Um, it's a luxury to have enough people to be able to focus on one position. Now, obviously, if an injury's happened, I get it. Then it's advantageous to have a guy who can go from one position to another. That's a whole different subject, though. But signing a safety free agent would allow us to have the luxury of our guys focus on one position and be able to excel about it so that we have the best player at every single position available on that field come week one. All right, next topic point. What to expect from the offense? We obviously have a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore. The offense has been talked about a lot this offseason, and there's a lot of questions circulating about it of what to expect. And there's probably a ton of answers that one could give to this question. But my biggest, kind of generic, broad answer I could give to what to expect from the offense, and that is civil collaboration. That's the very least I can say that we can expect. Various reports have indicated that Nick Sirianni, Kellen Moore, and Jalen Hurts have gotten together, taken in good plays from Sirianni's system, mixed them in with Kellen Moore philosophies, and have actually talked to Jalen Hurts about the plays that he liked versus ones that he didn't like, which ones he was more comfortable with, etc. That is intelligent collaboration. Um, and hopefully this process continues out through the remaining of the offseason and through the regular season in general. Now, you might be thinking, Michael, that's a pretty generic answer. A lot of teams probably have civil collaboration as well. Why is it so important for us? And I'll tell you why. Because last year's offensive coordinator left Jalen out to dry, and Kellen Moore has already taken him in and taken care of him. I've mentioned in at least one other episode before how former offensive coordinator Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts were rarely on the same page. This leads me to believe that there was like no collaboration, or at the very least, uncivil collaboration between Hurts and Johnson. Plus, the collaboration seems to indicate that Sirianni is dialing back, with various reports saying that there's been less micromanagement from him and more productive collaboration, which is exactly what this offense needs after last season. If you got your head coach, your OC, and your quarterback all on different pages with different opinions, different philosophies, egos, whatever you name it, it makes complete sense why our offense looked like it was written by a sixth grader. With quarterback draw, wide receiver screen, bubble screen, one after the other, the entire season. It makes sense now. But with this change in OC and this change in collaboration, you know, mentality, whatever you want to call it, it gives me hope that we will see a tremendous, um, you know, growth in diversity of play calling, but also just smarter play calling and, you know, just making it easier and better for the offense. That's all I could really ask for at this point. All right, moving on to the next topic. A breakout season for Saquon Barkley. Now, I think a lot of people have seen recently, Lane Johnson went on NFL Insiders recently to talk about Saquon Barkley and what he believes he will bring to the Eagles this year. Um, and some reporters are predicting that he is going to have like a breakout CMC style type of season. Do I think that this is going to happen? I cannot guarantee it, but I will say that there is a significant chance, like a 97, 98% chance that it will happen. And I will tell you why. Despite Saquon's injury history, and say what you will about that, um, he was behind a terrible offensive line that is not just my opinion, but a lot of people have talked about how bad the Giants' offensive line has been in recent years. Um, he still had 3 1,000 rushing yard seasons. Almost would have been 4 if he had 38 more rushing yards last year, because last year he had like 962 or something like that. Sure. Now, the season with his highest average yards per carry was in 2018 with 5 yards per carry, and it hasn't been, super fantastic since. But what we're forgetting is he's a dual threat quarterback with great pass catching abilities, with 12 of his 47 total touchdowns being receiving touchdowns throughout his career. Um, and he's got a pass completion rate of 72.7%, which is pretty good. Obviously, you're not going to make 100% of your catches, but being above 70%, that's pretty good. Um, and that's with one of his 6 seasons have only played 2 games. That completion is an average of his entire career. Um, Last year alone, he had an average of 6.8 yards per catch, 4 receiving touchdowns, and a 68% completion rate. With rushing, he averaged like just under 4 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns, and 962 total yards. This is all behind an offensive line that ranked dead last in pass blocking and ranked 30th in run blocking. And don't forget, Saquon was catching passes thrown by Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, and Tommy DeVito. And he was still able to get almost 1,000 yards and 10 total touchdowns. These QBs ranked 32nd or worse this year. The Giants did not help Saquon. They didn't get guys to block for him. They didn't value him for what he was worth, since basically he was the offensive playmaker for the Giants. And I can, have a debate with somebody on that anytime. They exhausted him each game because of that. Since, again, he was the playmaker and the Giants did him dirty. With the Eagles and Kellen Moore, Saquon is going to be behind the best offensive line in the league, and he's going to be playing alongside great receivers and a dual threat quarterback. He does not have to be the sole playmaker like he was on the Giants. Like, I couldn't even name a receiver on the Giants right now because of the level of significance Saquon had over them in terms of performance last year. He's not going to be under this huge amount of pressure to have to carry the offense when you got guys like Jalen Hurts, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. You got playmakers. You got a rotating running back room with Kenny Gainwell and Will Shipley. He's not going to be under a shitload of pressure to be the guy to make the play when we have an OC with, play calling diversity and more than one playmaker who can get the job done. It's going to give Saquon that sense of relief that he did not have with the Giants. He was a fantastic athlete with an abysmal offense, and behind a great offense, he is going to thrive. Now, does this all not sound similar to when CMC, aka Christian McCaffrey, left the Carolina Panthers, went to the San Francisco 49ers, and balled out even more than he already was with the Panthers? You can't tell me that these two situations, CMC going from Carolina to San Fran and Saquon going from New York to Philadelphia, you can't tell me that these two situations do not have extreme similarities. So it's not so far-fetched to think that Saquon Barkley is going to have a breakout CMC level type of year. All right, last talking point for tonight before I go into what we'll talk about next week is on the opposite side of the ball. Defensive breakout player. Now, before you think I think that there's just one, I think there's going to be more than one breakout defensive player. But I'm going to talk about one in particular this week, may go into some others next week. But this week, I want to focus on a defensive breakout player, and that being Reed Blankenship. So, last year, Blankenship led the Eagles with 113 tackles, 80 of them being solo tackles. And then he also had 11 pass deflections, 3 interceptions, and 1 fumble recovery. And this was all within a secondary that was ranked dead last in performance, that can easily be attributed to poor defensive coordination and the injuries that Blankenship had suffered. He barely cracked the top 20 in the PFF rankings, and by that I mean he tied at 20th. However, he did miss again. He missed a couple of games due to injury, and compared to the highest graded safety, that in Antoine Winfield Jr., let's take a look at these comparisons. Winfield had 87 solo tackles to Reed's 80, so 7 tackle difference. They both had 3 interceptions, and Winfield allowed 26 receptions to Blankenship's 37. That's probably the biggest discrepancy in their performances. But in a new defense under Vic Fangio, plus a reunion with fellow safety CJ Gardner-Johnson, who played with Blankenship in the 2022 season, and they were a fantastic safety tandem. Again, this idea of less pressure on specific people, the pressure won't be as high on Blankenship to make a play way out of his zone because nobody else can fucking tackle. And while he's got a lot of fans who recognize his talent, he still has various critics who still aren't convinced of his talent. However, with all the changes to the defense and Blankenship's, yearly performance increases, he's got the chance to be a breakout defensive player for the Birds this season. I don't doubt that. I think he is a very underrated player. I think he knows he's underrated, and the Eagles thrive in that underrated underdog mentality. When we saw with the 2017-2018 Super Bowl season, even while being the number 1 seed, we were the underdogs in, I think, the game against the Falcons in the divisional round. So we thrive on that underdog, underrated mentality. And I think with a little extra coaching support with this new scheme, Reed's going to have a breakout year. Pending he stays healthy. I know he's had his injury history, but again, he's going to be in a defensive scheme that's not going to rely on him solely making the tackles. Tackling was a huge issue last year, and they're definitely going to need some help at that. But, if the tackling improves within this new scheme, it's going to be a lot less pressure on Reed. He won't have to feel the need to, be the guy to make the tackle to stop a touchdown. All right. That is all the talking points for tonight's episode. Before we go into we're going into next week, obviously we're going to talk about a lot of other Eagles news, things that come up within this offseason. We're just weeks away from when rookies and veterans report to camp, which again is July 23rd. But next week, I'm going to go into some quarterback talk because there just continues to be a lot of unnecessary slander to Jalen Hurts. There was a tweet that came out from an NFL reporter comparing Jalen Hurts to Joe Burrow. It read something along the lines of Joe Burrow having like 106 touchdowns to Jalen's 108 touchdowns, and Joe Burrow having more turnovers than Jalen Hurts, and then him having like 14,000 yards apiece. Now, I went and did my research. The turnover and the touchdown statistics were right. However, there was actually probably like a 2,500 to 3,000 yard differential between Burrow and Hurts. However, I think the two main important points, the turnovers and the amount of touchdowns being accurate, was probably the biggest takeaway from that. Because while Jalen Hurts has more touchdowns and less turnovers than Joe Burrow is talked about like a top 5 QB god, while Jalen Hurts is being spoken about like he's not a top 10 or even top 15 quarterback. Like, are you kidding me? Jalen Hurts not being a top 10 or even top 15 quarterback? that's just bamboozling, not the best word to describe it, but that's how bamboozling it is to think that Hurts is not that high level of quarterback. Yes, he had one bad season, but you know who else had bad seasons? Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. Every quarterback has had not a great season. Okay. Josh Allen still leads the league in turnovers for quarterbacks since 2020. And again, I'll go on this next week. A lot of interesting comparisons for everyone's career per games. Josh Allen per game, based on his career statistics, is 100% likely to commit at least one turnover per game. But we'll go more into that next week. Thank you for joining us on this episode. If you liked it, again, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications to our YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, which is all at Second and 15, which you can see on the screen here. And our Facebook is just the podcast title, Second and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast. You can also use that title to find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Player FM, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to show some love to the Old City Sports Network social medias as well. Just search Old City Sports Network on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and you'll be able to find them. Give the network a shout out, give the shows some love, as well as they bring you various Philadelphia sports based content along with some other pop culture content. So, on that note, I will see you all next week. Thank you again for joining. Don't forget to stay fly like an eagle. And as always, go birds.